Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, January 24th, 2020. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker for his usual Friday visit. On today's show, Jay Book and I are going to get into some depth chart discussion, looking at the 2020 Buckeyes. We'll also talk about what Coach Mick had to say earlier this week when he met with the media for over a half hour, which was really cool. But Jay Book, I want to start with running backs, kind of rekindle our conversation from last week when we kind of ended the show with talking about running backs. I know you're very high on Marcus Crowley, and, Master Teague is obviously coming back as maybe the front runner to be the starter. Just how do you think that's going to break down? Do you think it's a Master Teague versus Marcus Crowley battle? Who do you think is going to start? Might they split carries? Just how do you see that shaking out?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a battle, but I think both guys are definitely going to get their fair share of touches. I do see it a situation where Master Teague will obviously get the first crack at bat. I think he will definitely be the starter. I mean, the guy had almost 900 yards rushing as a backup running back or something along those lines. So I definitely think that he's going to be a guy that will get the nod early on. It's really going to be something to watch when it comes to Marcus Crowley's health with his knee. I know Coach Mick, talking to the media, really didn't have an update on him. As spring ball gets ready to come around, hopefully that he's trending in the right direction. I know there were some reports out there that it could be this summer until Crowley's really back full go. And if that's the case, it's going to be really hard for him to unseat Master Teague if he's not going to be back into the summer here. But I think with both guys, they have a different style of game. The one concern that, not necessarily a concern, but Coach Mick had mentioned when it comes to Master Teague, the guy is in tremendous physical shape, but the thing that he has to get better at is his leadership qualities and abilities. They mentioned that he's a very, very quiet kid, but they're going to need more from him. He's going to really need to step up his leadership role, especially in that running back room, being the veteran guy in there. So they're really going to need Master T to up his game when it comes to being a leader in that room. And one way you do that is not everybody's going to be a rah-rah guy, but just showing up to work every day and just grinding your butt off. And all indications are is that's what you're going to get out of Master T.
Then behind those two, Steele Chambers will be a redshirt freshman. Mayan Williams will be a true freshman. DeMario McCall, fifth-year senior. How do you think it's going to shake out with those guys? I mean, you think Steele Chambers might be the main man behind those, assuming Master Teague and Marcus Crowley are the main guys? You think Steele Chambers is going to be that third guy? You think it might be somebody else?
I think it'll be Steele Chambers. I mean, for whatever reason, DeMario McCall hasn't really panned out like we all had hoped. I thought in that Michigan game when he really tore it up and he made Devin Bush look foolish, I thought coming into this year he could be really utilized as a Swiss Army knife, but we didn't see it. We rarely saw him on the field besides taking a knee in the end zone when it came to kickoffs. So I'm not sure what we're going to get out of DeMario McCall. For the most part, I think Steele Chambers, they're very high on him. A lot of people believe he should be a linebacker, but I think he has the potential to be a full steam ahead when it comes to running the football. So I'm curious to see how he plays out, because I think as long as Marcus Crowley's still rehabbing that knee, you could be seeing a lot of Steele Chambers during the spring ball. And if he looks good, then all bets are off when it comes to who's going to be that second team running back, because I just think that guy is so big. He runs so hard. If he can show that he can pass block and he can do the things that he needs to do in order to move the chains, then he's going to have a shot. My only concern is will you have two guys with very similar running styles in Master Teague and Steele Chambers? I think they have to have some guy who's going to be able to make people miss and create those hidden yards. I'm not sure if you're going to get those hidden yards type of runs from Teague and Steel Chambers. I know those guys run extremely hard. They're very talented, but they could have similar running styles.
By the way, two of the coolest names in college football, Master Teague and Steel Chambers.
Yeah, they definitely make the all-name team in college football, that's for sure. I mean, if they were out there trucking people, I'm pretty sure that all of college football would know who they are fairly quickly.
No doubt about it. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the linebackers. Tough Borland returns as the starting middle linebacker. Baron Browning returns as the backup middle linebacker. You have to think those guys are going to rotate a little bit, or rotate just like they did this year. Maybe Baron Browning will play some defensive end. We'll get into that a little bit. Pete Werner returns, but they lose Malik Harrison, who's going to play in the NFL for many years, in my opinion. Let's start with that. Presuming that Borland and Werner are the starters at two of the spots, and Browning as a backup, who do you think will replace Malik Harrison? You think it'll be Kayvon Pope, Taraja Mitchell, Dallas Gant? Who do you think is going to replace Malik Harrison?
Yeah, I think it'd be Kayvon Pope, because what they was asking out of Malik Harrison is they wanted a guy who can really run. I know Taraja Mitchell, he's a heck of a talent. I'm really waiting for him to flash because I think there's big things ahead of him. But I really, really like Pope's game. I thought he's a guy that got his hands on the football and made the most out of his opportunities. You could really see a nice rotation there. I just think that with those younger guys, they really have to be patient. This is kind of an unheard of type of situation when it comes to the linebackers being that veteran there. Usually at Ohio State, you see a lot of the veteran guys or, juniors or redshirt sophomores. Once they really flash, those guys typically head off to the NFL. So having those guys as far as Tough and Pete Werner around this long is not typically the normal thing that you see when it comes to Ohio State linebackers. So those younger guys just have to stay patient. But I think it's going to be very important for Al Washington is he's going to have to find a way to get those younger guys on the field. Even if it's situationally or rotating, he has to get them on the field, or they could be at risk of losing some of those younger guys because you can only buy your time for so long. And that's why I think Jeff Hafley did a tremendous job with the secondary, because a lot of those younger guys, they were getting those meaningful snaps. They were getting in on the rotation. Obviously, you're going to have more DBs on the field in today's game, but I think you still have to be able to get some of those younger guys some reps in order to keep them engaged.
Now let's look at the defensive line. It's still going to be stacked, but, they've got a lot of talented guys to replace. Starting with Chase Young, but the numbers at defensive tackle are not where I would like them to be.
Yeah, I think it's all going to be contingent on what we get out of Taron Vincent if he's coming back healthy, because he's a five-star guy, one of the top-rated prospects in the country coming out of that 2018 class. So they're going to need him to really step up. Obviously, Big Tom is going to be a stud in the middle, but they need some of those veteran guys to really, really step their game up. And I think it's going to be contingent on, one, they need to stay healthy, and two, a lot of those guys, you can make the argument was they were playing behind some veterans and NFL caliber defensive tackles. So what would they do once they get their shot? I just think that the talent is there. They're going to be raw. They're going to be younger. But Larry Johnson did get a lot of those guys a couple reps here and there. So it's just going to be them just maximizing their opportunity. Their time is now. Obviously the numbers could be a little bit deeper, but I do think the talent is there.
Yeah, let's just hope, guys, if Tommy Togiai stays healthy, I think they're going to be fine, because he's the one guy that I have written in Sharpie that's going to be a starter as far as a defensive tackle. He will be the starting one tech. He played a lot this past season, and they loved Devon Hamilton. They had B.B. Landers. They had, Jayshon Cornell played three tech, but they had guys that they really liked that were veteran guys. But Tommy was still out there a lot as a sophomore. Now as a junior, he's going to be playing more snaps. He needs to be more of a leader. He's the strongest guy on the team, and I have big hopes for Tommy Togiai as a junior, and I have him. There's no doubt he's going to be a starter at the one tech. The three-tech is very interesting, J-Book. So there could be Antoine Jackson there, could be Haskell Garrett. In fact, I think Haskell Garrett will probably get first shot there. Although Antoine Jackson will be a fifth-year senior, he could play maybe both spots. Antoine Jackson is the one guy I think could play both spots. Larry Johnson doesn't like having guys play both spots. He prefers for them to either be a one-tech or the three-tech, but sometimes he'll make exceptions, and Antoine Jackson was one of the guys he made an exception for last year. But Haskell Garrett will be in the mix there, of course. Teron Vincent, as you mentioned. I mean, if you had to pick, who do you think is going to be of those three, Jackson, Garrett, and Vincent, who do you think is going to be the main guy at that three-tech?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think when it comes to Jackson, his flexibility, I think, will be a luxury this year. Just having the capability to flip over from either side, especially when you may have a little bit of depth issues there, just having someone with the flexibility so that they're not pigeonholed into one spot will really help you out, especially if something, God forbid, happens if someone gets hurt. But I think, obviously, Haskell Garrett, he's been kind of a guy that's played spot duty for the last several years. He's one of the guys that's on my mind when I say, hey, your time is now to shine. Like, this is your opportunity. You're an upperclassman. You sit behind some very talented guys who are going to be playing at the next level. So what are you going to do now that the ball is in your court? So I think Haskell Garrett would definitely get his shot to be the potential starter. Teron Vincent, when he was a true freshman, I mean, he really flashed the time that he was in there. Obviously, the injury set him back this year, so I'm curious to see how he looks come this spring, fully healthy. So just getting him back is going to be a major, major boost. They're really going to need him. I think they're going to need all of those guys in the rotation because obviously Ohio State is not going to be looking for, one or two guys playing 60 and 70 snaps a game. Everybody's going to need to be able to pitch in. It's just finding your best two guys and then having your rotation in there after that.
And at defensive end, I think there's a pretty clear top three with Zach Harrison, Tyreek Smith, Jonathan Cooper in whatever order. I throw Javonte Jean-Baptiste in there as well. I mean, he's going to be playing a lot. Tyler Friday is going to be playing a lot. They're going to be rotating, but, people want to know who the starters are going to be. Is it going to be Zach Harrison and Jonathan Cooper with Tyreek Smith, the first guy off the bench? Is that how you see it shaking out at the end?
Yeah, I definitely see that. The one thing that they definitely need to do is they need Tyreek Smith to stay on the field. I know he missed a lot of time this year with injuries, so they're going to really need him to stay healthy and stay on the field. The guy that I'm really interested in seeing is Cade Stover, now that he's moved down to the defensive end position. I want to see what he's like getting after the quarterback because he definitely has the length and the size, and he's been ingrained into the Coach Mick strength and conditioning program, so he should be really bulked up and ready to go. And I thought it was interesting in the press conference, Coach Mick said as soon as he laid eyes on Cade Stover, he knew he was going to be a guy that potentially moved down. I mean, he came in at 6'4", and just his length and his body size already said that this is a guy who's going to bulk up naturally and potentially move down to that defensive line position. And then you mentioned earlier, Baron Brownie. I thought he flashed at times whenever he was asked to get after the quarterback. I think that's something that he can really excel at. So I'll be curious if Madison and Combs can create some packages to where Baron Browning's coming off the edge there. But I like the defensive end. I think they're very deep. Tyler Friday played a lot of minutes this year. And Jean-Baptiste, he's bulked up to, from 190 pounds to 240-plus pounds. So he's a guy that can really get off the football with an explosive first step. So just having an array of guys there in your rotation is going to bode well. As you mentioned, the biggest concern is obviously at the defensive tackle position. But as far as defensive end, you have to really like what you have coming back.
Yeah, and real quick, back to D-tackle just for a moment. So behind Togi at the one tack, as we mentioned, Antoine Jackson can probably play there. He can play there. He will play there. But after that, man, it's kind of slim pickings. I mean, hopefully Jerron Cage, he's a guy that'll be a third-year sophomore, Cincinnati guy. Well, he might be a fourth-year junior, actually. Let me look at that as we are live on the air here. We're not really live on the air. Jerron Cage, yeah, he will be. He will be a fourth-year junior, Jerron Cage. they have Caden McKenzie, who'll be a redshirt freshman. Darian Henry will be a true freshman. Again, at that one tech, there's just not much depth there. Of those young guys, you think Cage, who really isn't a young guy anymore, is a fourth-year junior, or McKenzie or Henry, you think any of those guys might step up?
Yeah, and I use the old phrase that Urban Meyer we used to say to his guys, like, when are you going to actually start doing something for it? So that would be, what I would say to Cage. Urban Meyer will always, talk about in his press conference, some of these veteran guys, when are you going to start contributing? So that's what I want to see from Cage. Is I think this spring for him is going to be imperative. He is absolutely going to need a monster spring and really put himself in that rotation. I mean, I don't think he would be a starter, but they would definitely need him to really up his game. I mean, as far as counting on true freshmen there, I'm not going to put my hopes on any type of true freshman. Obviously, Larry, if you're talented enough, Larry Johnson will get you in there in the rotation and stuff. So Darian Henry is just going to be contingent on how fast he can get up to speed. Obviously, is Henry? I think Henry's an early enrollee too, isn't he? Because didn't he come in with Paris Johnson?
Yeah, he's here. Yeah, he's one of the 14, which is crazy how they have that many. It's unbelievable. Right. They have 14. As Mick was talking about the other day, this is by far the most guys he's had, not just early enrollees, most early enrollees, of course, but also they've got like a lot of guys coming back that they didn't necessarily expect would come back if you talk to them, at the start of the season, like Justin Hilliard, like Jonathan Cooper, Sean Wade. They've got, they knew Chase Young was going to go pro. They knew J.K. Dobbins and Jeff Okuda were going to go pro. They've got a big group right now. Yeah, and Darian Henry is one of them. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned Justin Hilliard because his name totally escaped me there as someone that's going to be able to play. I really like the way Justin Hilliard played down the stretch there, not only just on special teams, but I felt like the reps that he got at the linebacker position, he was playing some of his best football as a Buckeye. So hopefully he stays healthy, but just having him back with his veteran leadership, I mean, my goodness, look at the leadership coming out of that linebacker room. I mean, I know a lot of people are up and down on Tough Borland, but if you look at the accolades and the respect that he commands from this football team, he could be, a 3-time captain there. Justin Hilliard is in the running to be a captain. You get a veteran and Pete Werner and Browning back. The leadership there is definitely in that linebacker room. But Henry, he's going to get a nice opportunity to really put himself in position because anytime you're a freshman and you're able to get in there early for winter conditioning and start getting yourself ingrained to the program earlier, it really ups your chances of seeing the field a whole lot quicker.
And Jaden McKenzie's a guy that was a 3-star recruit, he's a forgotten man. Maybe he can be a guy that can surprise some people. Again, I don't know if he's going to be a 1-tech or a 3-tech, but he's a big guy. They have him listed. This is as a true freshman. He's listed at 6'4", 280. I'm sure he's bigger than that now. So maybe Jaden McKenzie's another guy that can help out at D-tackle. Okay, to finish the show here, we talked a lot about what Coach Mick said the other day. And again, if you haven't watched that interview, go on Bucknuts. We have the full half-hour interview with Coach Marotti. It's just great stuff. We've talked a lot about it already, Jay Book, but maybe something else that really stood out to you. It could be, he talked about Nicholas Petit-Ferrer's not over 300 pounds, and he gushed about, working with DeJuan Jones and everything. Just maybe something that stands out that we haven't discussed so far about Coach Mick's interview the other day. Yeah,
the DeJuan Jones piece really made me smile because he talked about how, they asked him about DeJuan Jones' body and his weight and stuff, and Coach Mick said he's good. I mean, obviously he's a massive human being, but as far as his weight and where he's at, they really like it. I mean, he's just going to be a huge kid no matter how hard he works in the strength and conditioning room and how hard he works with the nutritionist. But they really like what they're getting out of him. And the one thing that Coach Mick talked about, and I think is pretty imperative, is the 14 incoming freshmen is kind of those guys working amongst each other. So having that many guys in your class there, it really builds the brotherhood. But most importantly, it's going to provide a significant amount of depth to the roster there. Just having that many freshmen already on campus and participating in spring football is going to allow Ohio State to really plug and play some of those guys, especially with the redshirt rule where a lot of those guys are going to get, their 4 games automatically. but I think the majority of those guys are going to be playing early. And I think the quarterback, especially at the quarterback position with Jack Miller and C.J. Stroud, just having those two guys on the playing field during the spring is going to be monsters for this football program. And Coach Mick touched on that, said both guys are coming in hungry. Both guys are coming in here competing. They see Justin Fields, a guy that's 6'3", 230, who loves to work out, and I thought it was a little eye-opening from Coach Mick saying that that playoff game has really intensified the work ethic from Justin Fields. He's a different guy. Obviously, it's been 3 weeks, but a guy who really doesn't blow smoke up a lot of people's butt, and Coach Mick saying that Justin Fields is a changed person, and he's approaching the game a whole lot different, has to put a smile on Ohio State's face.
Great stuff from Jonah Booker here on the Bucknuts Morning 20-ish. Really appreciate it, J-Book, and I appreciate all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.